one song. Not an hour, just a minute long. Go on and think about it all you need. And get up on the floor. Do me a favor. You write your name, I'll learn it later. You're so caught up in what just ain't important. You forgot to move, so shut up and groove.
We're gonna introduce it though. The Lizzy, the backpack.
Do me a favor. You write your name, I'll learn it later. You're so caught up in what just ain't important.
Okay, we got like 2 minutes.
To move, so shut up and
Oh yeah. Oh. Back. Let's get this off of here.
We all got this. Worst case scenario, I'll just start talking. There you go. Call it, no, jump on my back.
And that's okay. What's Hello?
Hello.
We ready?
We're ready.
Hello, 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 hello.
We're always ready.
We are so ready to just get started, right? I have been really, I know I say this every week, but really, I have really been, I couldn't sleep last night. I've really been in that place because I'm just excited about what we're going to talk about. Is so needed, and I have like the most awesome 2 people here.
Yes.
To expound on what we're going to talk about on tonight. So I hope everybody is on. I gave a challenge to the Hilliites and the Katyites to make sure that they're on and they're sharing, because this is a very, very important topic. So you guys know how we do it. We'll introduce ourselves and then we'll get right into what we're going to talk about, our topic.
Hello and good evening. I'm Laurie Fox. I am so glad to be here tonight. Again, another show that's going to bring so much awareness. So this is going to be great. You see, we're all dressed alike, and she even got me in tennis shoes. So it's going to be a night.
Oh, be a night.
Okay, my name is Nicole, also known to some of you as Denaja Samuel. I am author and poet of a book called Expressions of Confessions, which kind of covers the topic that we're going to be speaking about tonight. So I'm overexcited and overjoyed to be able to share my story as well as my testimony and my victory.
So yes. Cool.
Awesome. I'm Aisha Tate, here simply to remind you that you're loved, you matter, you're beautiful, and you're a gift that's meant to contribute to life.
We knew Maisha was going to say that.
I almost chimed in with her.
Hi, my name is Liz, and I'm here to share my story tonight.
Oh, my goodness. That was real short, Liz.
She gonna talk more later. To be continued.
And that is so Liz. Unless
Go behind all that.
unless she wants to talk to me
Awesome introduction.
about something, and it's gonna be like hours. But that was my name is Liz and blah blah blah.
You'll get more. You'll get more. You'll get more.
And I am Gail Johnson, and you guys know me. I'm just so happy to be a part of New Wine Talk,
Yes.
where we have candid conversations about real issues, okay? So on tonight, you guys, I know most of you may have seen the advertisement, but I just want to kind of expound a little bit on the advertisement that we put out. It's tonight's topic is I am a survivor, and it's we're going to go deep into child abuse and child abuse issues. As most of you all know, we work with children. Me and Liz, we work with children. We have a child care facility, High Achievers Learning Center, and we just love children. And she's been with us. It'll be 3 years in December.
No way.
3 years, I mean it, in December. And when Liz came to us, I mean, she had a great credentials and everything, but it wasn't that. It was something, it was a connection. And after she came to work with us, and Pastor was like, you got to do this, you got to do this. I'm like, hire her.
Yeah, she hired her before she even said hire.
Because it was a connection, and the connection, really, I found out what the connection was after we started working together, maybe maybe not even a week, maybe into a week. But we were in the kitchen, and I will never forget it. I was washing the dishes. You know, you guys know I'm like anal retentive when it comes to cleaning stuff. Washing the dishes and doing this, and she was standing and talking, and she began to share with me that she believed that she was there, and how the Lord had really downloaded into her spirit that I was going to be helping her do a particular project. And I'm like, okay. And so we started talking, and we started talking about our own personal childhood issues of child abuse, and that connected us. I'll never forget it. Liz was crying when she was telling me, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't take it. You can only give me a small amount at a time. But she gave it to me, and it was history. I mean, so we started talking about her project and all of that. I'm like, okay. I got right on board because we had such a connection because of the issues, our childhood issues. And I trust her totally with the children. I mean, it's very few people that I would leave those, because those children are my children. I tell people, look, if they're here 8 hours, they're ours, right? For 8 hours. And it's very few people that I would really trust them with. And so I feel very confident when I'm away or whatever, because our stories, most often your stories can make or break you. Yes. And in this particular connection, I believe that our stories in actuality made us. And so the making was that making of more compassion toward children, becoming child advocates as well, to be there to really, make sure children are taken care of and they're not abused. And so I really want to commend her for the work that she's doing, and I want her to kind of tell her story. And then also with Nicole. Nicole came to us at a face down, a face down prayer. And when she showed up to face down prayer, oh my God, the Spirit of the Lord moved in this place, and total deliverance came forth. But I didn't know her story. And so just getting bits and pieces of her story, I'm like, oh my goodness. So that's the connection. People oftentimes, they can't really walk where you've walked unless they've walked where you've walked. And so I just want to commend you all for being transparent, for being willing to tell your story, so that someone else that have walked that path can be free and and be delivered. So without further ado, we'll let Liz, we'll start with you, Lizzy Bear, kind of, if number one, introduce your story, and you can just tell bits and pieces, and then we'll come back and ask you questions, and then we'll allow Nicole as well to introduce hers, and we'll just kind of interject and ask questions as you go.
Okay. So y'all stop me when this is somebody else's turn?
Like, get in here.
Liz is a talker.
Yes, I'm a talker, but kind of nervous. I was born in Bay City, Texas, and to two alcoholic parents. That neglected us, so CPS pulled us out. And I was at a home in Galveston, and I got adopted. So my adopted parents were my abusers. So my dad that adopted me sexually abused me, and the mother that adopted me physically abused me. So she kind of treated me like I was the other woman instead of helping me. So I was 6 years old. So she would start beating me because she knew he was doing things to me. So, and it was like a cycle. So he knew she was hitting me. So then he would hit her. So anyway, so I guess,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. So this went on till I was 12 years old. So it started when I was 6. And then my mother that adopted me, she also had 2 sons when they adopted me. So as a teenager, he began coming in my room at night as well, climbing into bed with me. When he would come in, I would pretend I was asleep. Just, kind of block everything out. So sometimes I didn't know if it was my dad coming in or my brother. Sometimes my mom would I don't know, she would be up drinking, I guess, and thinking about it, and she would just come in when he was working nights and just drag me out of bed and just beat me because. So I had a lot of trouble getting to sleep and staying asleep because there was always somebody touching me or hitting me or bothering me. So this went on for a while until they separated. And then he actually got visitation rights. And it was just, he would just do things to scare me, to keep me from telling anybody, told me he would kill me. Told me he would kill my grandparents, which were my mother that adopted me. It was her grandparents, her mom and dad. And I was actually close to them, so they never treated me like I was adopted. The family that adopted me was actually a white family. When they adopted me, I didn't know any English at all. So they didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know what they were saying. I had to have speech therapy for that. And she began to tell me how stupid Mexicans were. Just all the time. They're so stupid. Your parents were stupid. They couldn't even take care of you. They couldn't even, have a job or. So this is just on and on. She just hated me. And I never understood why somebody would take a child in and just be rude, mean to them like that, just constantly. But my father that adopted me, he was very crazy. And alongside of just being sexually abusive, he was also a transvestite. So that was also brought into the abuse. I do have, and that's why I'm scared to talk in front of people. Took a lot of pictures of me, dressed me up, watched me, looked at me. And so I get really freaked out when I stand in front of a lot of people and they're looking at me. So, but every day I learned how to heal from that. I'm 47 years old, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I learned how to shut my door when I go to sleep. Just little things like that. You have flashbacks, smells, colors, sayings. They just take you back in a matter of seconds. And so just me coming out and talking, just to bring awareness, I know it's a good thing to talk about my story, but it right now I'm just inside. But both of my abusers are still alive, so that's even harder knowing that, But anyways, did you want me to talk about?
I'll do
No?
it in
Okay.
a minute. Okay, so
Sorry.
that's Liz. We're gonna get Nicole. Nicole, your story.
Okay, first I want to say that abuse is not always something that you can see on the outside. Most of the time
Exactly.
when we think about abuse, we're looking for black eyes, we're looking for kids that have been pinched, we're looking for broken ribs and things of that nature. But the most unseen abuse is the kind that happens behind closed doors. And like she said, when the people that abuse you are still alive. Just for us to be on this platform of social media, I know this is being viewed by thousands of people, and I get a lot of ridicule from my family because, unlike Liz, my abuse started from within my family, and it wasn't I wasn't adopted. These were my blood family members, you know. And with my situation, I had a mom and dad. My mom and dad were married. On the outside, everything looked perfect. My parents made good money. I dressed nice. I had name brand things. Growing up, I never forget, I had a Teddy Ruxpin doll. That doll was like $300. And so it looked like I was living a good life, but what a lot of people didn't know, both of my parents were on drugs. I would always like to say that they were functioning addicts because they didn't look like they did drugs. You only knew that they did drugs at home when you're asleep and you're trying to go to school and there's loud music playing, there's heavy smoke coming from underneath the door. Like Liz said, you smell these things, you're 6 years old, you're not really knowing what you're smelling, but you begin to put the smells with the music, with the, oh, mom and dad looks like this, and you know, and the next morning, it's like they have different attitudes. So my parents eventually end up separating. And let me say this, I love both of my parents equally. I grew up learning how to forgive them because in order to move forward in life, I had to forgive them as well as forgive myself. I commend both of my parents because what they did, say for instance, if my mom was heavy in her addiction, she would give me to my father, and then my father and I would go and live with my grandmother. And then if it's almost like they took turns trying to get better, going to rehab. They did try, in instances when they weren't able to take care of me, they would give me to a family member or someone else that was more capable of taking care of me. Well, what happened, my abuse ended up happening by a family member that is no longer on earth. He is deceased, but he started out molesting me, and he also molested my cousins. And then he would molest us all together in a room, and then he would make us do things to one another. And that went on for years. So eventually, by the time I got 12, my family member ended up having like a sexual attraction for me. And I was never mad at my family member because I felt like we were both victims. But when I became at a certain age, I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. So this one particular night that I said that, you know, I was bold enough to say, no, hey, I don't want to do this. My family member actually raped me. Along with a friend of his. And in my mind, as I was sitting there and they were both doing it and holding me down, I was more upset that he allowed his friend to know that he was doing that to me as well. I was kind of upset, like, you know, why did you let your friend in on our family secret? So at the age of 13 going into 14, I ended up pregnant. I didn't even know what pregnancy was. I actually found out I was pregnant because I ended up going to a pool party in a two-piece, and my friend was like, you look pregnant, and I didn't even know what pregnancy was. So once I found out, of course, I didn't want to contact my family member. I contacted his friend, and I was like, you know, hey, you got me pregnant. He was like, no, I didn't, and if you say that to anybody, I'm gonna let everybody know that your cousin was there and your cousin slept with you. So I was so afraid, I was so scared. So what they end up doing, they end up calling my house, and this was back in the day before caller ID came out, and my dad answered the phone, and they told my dad that I had got pregnant by this guy at school that was on the football team. So the next morning, my dad woke up, he didn't ask me any questions, and the whole point of the matter is because it was somebody on my mother's side of the family, I was afraid to tell my dad because I just knew in my mind, okay, now I'm 14, the way I'm picturing this is my dad's going to kill my cousin, then my uncle's going to be mad at my mom, and then my dad's going to be in jail, my cousin's going to be dead. That's a lot for a kid to try to digest and try to understand and try to bear. So I didn't say anything, but again, I wanted to be asked. I felt like if my dad would have asked me, What happened? How did you get pregnant? Then he would have opened the door for me to be able to tell. But my dad never asked anything. He just knocked on my door that morning and was like, I'm going to take you to have an abortion. I didn't even know what an abortion was. So I ended up having an abortion. I was 4.5 months pregnant at the age of 14. And it ended up messing me up on the inside. The doctors told me that I would never be able to have kids and I end up just suffering all types of feminine issues from that. So moving forward, I didn't get a chance to tell anyone about what really happened until my 25th birthday. When I turned 25, I wrote my dad a 3-page letter. And I explained to him, I said, you never asked me what happened. My dad kind of treated me like he was embarrassed, like he was disappointed, like he had raised a slut, and that's not who I was, and that's not what I was, and he didn't know what had happened to me. And because of what happened, I began to look for love in all the wrong places. I began to think, well, that's what you do with somebody to show them that you love them. You lay down, you wait till they finish and they get their gratitude, and you hope for the best when you get up. Because my dad took me to have an abortion, I thought that was the solution. Oh, it's okay. If I do happen to get pregnant, I'll just go have an abortion. I thought that was the way that you handled the situation. So what I want to say to you out there that are watching, if you have children, ask your children. Listen to your children. And another reason why I couldn't openly tell my dad what happened is because my dad was always like abrasive. Like even if he said I love you, it sounded like I love you, and it like everything was sounded angry. So I was afraid to tell him what happened, because a lot of times when people abuse you or they molest you, some kind of way they get in your mind to make you feel like it's your fault. Okay, so your cousin did this to you, but what were you wearing? Were your shorts too short? Were your pants too tight? Were your breasts showing? And then they give you all of these feelings in your head that make you feel a lot of regret. So moving forward, I just want to admonish you all to have an open communication with your children. Another thing, I found out later on in life that the person that was molesting me as a kid also did the same thing to my mom. So it's like a generational curse. If you have experienced this, you want to do your best to protect your children.
Of course.
And when I was growing up, I used to always say I never wanted to have a daughter because I never wanted to have to deal with what I went through. But nowadays, they're doing it to little boys too.
Of course.
And a lot of men have been sexually abused, but they don't want to say it because they don't want to be accused of being gay. They don't want to be looked at, funny or differently. So I had to realize, because when I was a kid, I was like, me and my cousin, we can get together and we can tell and we can let everybody know what's going on. But he wasn't going to let everybody know what was going on because he didn't want anybody to know that a grown man was touching on him and things of that nature. So one more thing I do want to say to those of you that are watching, if you have been abused, you have to get help, because this will affect you in the long run. Like Liz said, she's in her 40s. I'm 38 years old. If I'm trying to have a successful relationship with someone, and if the guy touches me and I'm always jumping, and it's just different things, different
triggers.
Different triggers. It could be a certain song that my family member used to play when he was bothering me or touching me in unwanted places, or like the cologne he used to wear, Brute. I hate Brute. When I smell it, it just I can almost cry just by the smell of it. So it is different triggers, and if you are out there and you have experienced abuse, I admonish you to get help. It's never too late. You're never too old, and that's why I wrote the book that I wrote, and it was called Expressions of Confessions. It was my confessions, my true stories, my diary of what happened to me and how I overcame it and how I was able to forgive those that not only hurt me, but I feel like they had a very large effect on my life.
Very good.
Yeah.
Y'all have any questions?
Well, no, I was just going to say that's good that you said that because Liz and I were talking, and that is such a part of the journey is journaling and just writing that out. Liz, why don't you share that story that you just told me about the journaling and what you did with the
So cool.
sandbox or the dirt box with the kids? Because that is a part of your healing process. You have to get that stuff out of you, whether anybody reads it or not. It's you expressing and getting it out to allow yourself to be healed.
Yeah, I was sharing with Laurie earlier that I used to work with some kids, troubled teens, and I would get a pail of dirt, and I would have them write down, the things that's happened to them, and they would write it down, and I told them I wouldn't read it, and they would come out one by one, and they would tear up the paper, and they would get to dig a hole in the dirt and bury it, and just watching them. It was they would do it so angrily, like tear up the paper, and they would just bury it and cover it up. Well, we would wait a couple of months, and of course the paper and the ink would go into the soil, and it was good soil to do plants and flowers with. So I got them little pots and let them paint it, and we planted seeds in them, and just to show them that out of something bad came something good, and so they would have this beautiful flower. And it was, and that they could actually see it,
So awesome.
Yeah, so it was a really good teaching tool.
Yes, and a way of healing,
Oh,
just
yes.
that process of healing.
Exactly, yes.
I want to read something. I pulled these statistics because you guys know I love statistics. It says 3.6 million referrals are made to child protection agencies yearly. 3.6 million referrals involving at least 6.6 million children. 6.6 million. This is the U.S. This blew my mind. It says the U.S. has one of the worst records amongst industrialized nations. Okay? Let me see what I wrote down here. On average, between 4 to 7 children every day are abused or neglected. And that's just, we're talking, not just talking like you said, the abuse that we can see. Or the sexual abuse, or all of that. But there's so much verbal abuse. I hate yelling. I hate when people yell because it seems like it's just like a David and Goliath. You can't, a child cannot protect themselves. They can't fight against this giant, and the spoken words are the most dangerous when it comes to children. When you begin to speak those things over children, or negative things, or say things that are not conducive to who they really are, that you're stupid or you're dumb or you don't understand, or that kind of stuff. It most often is generational, because a lot of times we see that stuff, or whipping or beatings or whippings or whatever. Those are things that, especially in our culture, in the Hispanic culture, that they would do forever. These things that we thought were okay, we find out that it's really not okay. That we need to first and foremost learn how to talk and communicate, because just that communication alone could have set your life on a whole different path. But not communicating, just not even asking what happened, just believing what's said. We really need to learn how to ask questions, constantly ask questions. You guys know that I always talk about my being victimized as a child. What that victimization does to a person is it just totally strips them of security.
Right.
Did you guys, you feel that as well? You have no security at all. You just lose that, you never feel safe.
Right.
You never feel secure. It's like any day now, any minute, something is going to happen. So I just thought that was normal. What it does is, if we look at it spiritually, in actuality, it opens a door for fear.
Exactly.
So you live with this fear that you can't really label it. You can't really, put a word to it, being a child or being young, but it's this fear that overtakes you that becomes very personable. It takes on it becomes an entity. That's what happened to me. It became an entity. So I would fight, I would do all this, I'd go off, but it was something down on the inside of me that I was fearful. I lived in this life of fear, and I just I didn't know how to express that. And I see that a lot in children that becomes victims, that are victimized by pedophiles or whatever. They live in a place of fear and insecurity. And it's not so much, mine wasn't so much insecurity of not really knowing who I am and that kind of stuff. It wasn't that. It was like any minute now, all hell is going to break through in my life, or something is just not going to work. I look for the worst in everything because surely what happened to me was the worst, so I just expected the worst. And I see that in people that are become victims. What do you guys, did you guys experience that?
Well, not only that, this is what I wanted to say. That type of abuse, it actually wears down on your faith. I mean, you're a kid. My abuser was taking me to church every Sunday. He was Catholic, but I would just sit there and question, I don't understand this God. I don't understand how this works. He goes to service, he does all the rituals, and then he comes home and he does what he's doing to me. And even while I'm laying there and tears are running down my eyes, I'm like, God help me. And it's like, I'm at the young age of 6 and 7, like what type of God allows this to happen to a kid? And like you said, I feel vulnerable. I feel like there's nobody there to help me. So then you kind of grow up in your teenage years like, okay, y'all want me to believe, but where was the help when I needed it, when I was a kid, when I was defenseless, okay, now I'm a growing teenager, like you said, so now I can fight back. And it got to the point where when I was in high school, all my friends, they would joke, they'd be like, man, Denaja gonna beat you up. Well, they didn't know I was going around school beating everybody up because of what was happening to me at home. I was getting beat up, not physically, but verbally. I was a stepchild. I felt like I wasn't being treated fair, and but all of that stuff molded me into the woman that I am today. Now, if I date somebody and they have kids, I'm very loving towards their kids because I've been a stepchild. I know what it feels like to feel like there's a difference being made. And when I was growing up, my dad, he worked a lot, 12, 14-hour shifts. I longed for his attention, and a lot of times I wanted it to just be me and my dad because that's how it used to be, before he got remarried. And then a lot of times he would kind of push me off on my stepmom because he wanted us to have a relationship, but he forgot the fact that he was neglecting the relationship that him and I had before. So it's just more like, we have to pay attention to our children, and this is kind of the repercussion of what happens when you do things out of order, when you're promiscuous, when you have premarital sex, and you end up having a baby. Then you have to be a single mother. Then you have to go to work 8 and 9 hours a day, and you can't really spend the time you need to spend with your children. Then the internet ends up raising them, and it's like a vicious cycle.
Of course.
But awareness is the answer to all of this. Being aware of your children, being aware of your family members, being aware of your own shortcomings, your own mental illnesses. Like the key word to any of this is awareness, because once you are aware and you acknowledge where you need to fix things, then you can actually begin fixing and resolving some of the issues at hand. So I just want to admonish those of you that are watching, you are not alone. If you're in a room with 5 people, more than likely 3 of them have suffered some type of abuse.
Right.
That's right.
And if you have been yelled at, for those of you that are watching that know my children, to some adults, they think that my children are disrespectful, but it's not that they're disrespectful. In a sense, they just have questions. And a lot of times parents shut down their children when they have questions. And if you don't let your children ask questions, and it's always like, for instance, I told my son to wash, I said, can you wash the dishes? And he said, Mom, why are you asking me, can I? It's not like I can tell you no. So why don't you just tell me to wash the dishes? And once he said that, I was like, he has a valid point. But that's what my parents used to do to me when I was a kid. Can you wash the dishes? But, why am I asking him when he doesn't have the right to tell me no? He can't give me an answer. So, they keep me on my toes. They make me mindful. You know, my son says a lot of times, you know, Mom, you don't trust me. You don't think you raised me right. I know, you know, because I always tell him not to be a follower, to be a leader. So even in my, you know, parenting doesn't always come with the
don't have a manual.
No
You
instruction.
know, so a lot of times if I yell at my kids, I will, you know, sit back and say, you know, I shouldn't have said that. Or in my frustrations, if I'm upset, I try not to deal with them. I never whoop them when I'm really angry. You know, I just like threaten them. I say crazy stuff like, you know, I'll knock your head off to the back of your knees, you know, something
Some of
don't
that
make
mama
no
stuff.
sense, you know,
Back in the day stuff.
yeah, to try to scare them, and they're like, how is that even humanly possible? Or you don't want to find out, you know. So I'm just thankful for my experiences. I'm not ashamed of them. I don't
good.
have any problems saying what I've been through because
good.
I'm not where I used to be, and I'm not planning on staying where I am. My goal is to progress, to help others, to move
Yes.
forward. And again, you can't hate your family members that have done these things to you because more than likely they were suffering from something. Somebody may have done it to
Right.
them. They may have had some illness, some sicknesses, some, you know, demonic possession, anything. But you
Right.
have to learn to forgive, and you have to learn to forgive yourself, or else this will eat you up for the rest of your life.
Yes, it will.
That's good. That's
Maisha?
good.
Yeah, of course, none of this ever happened to me, but listening to you talk about, you know, how you parent, I can speak to that because my dad, he was abused, and, you know, I think for parents that have been abused, it's important to talk to children about your abuse because I feel like one of the reasons possibly that I never was abused was because my dad told us about his, and he told us about what to look for and people to watch out for so that that didn't happen to us because it affected his life in a major way. You know, people found out about it. It was widespread. And he dropped out of school, you know. Ninth grade was as far as he went because he couldn't take the ridicule of boys calling him gay and all of this stuff. But that was like 14, and he marries my mom like 5 years later. So you have this baby that's had this life that goes and starts a life. And his goal was to never let that happen to us. So my heart goes out to y'all because y'all didn't have parents like mine. And I just want parents to make sure that you talk to your children if you've been abused, because it doesn't have to be a cycle. It doesn't have to be predicated. Your child doesn't have to be a victim if you're just open enough to express what happens, because a lot of the overprotectiveness is just trying to be protective to stop the vicious cycle, you know, and we didn't understand that. That's why he finally broke down and told us his story. You know, we wept together and we began to understand that everything is not them being mean.
Of course.
It's love.
That was me. I became very, very, very overprotective of my children. I mean, it is what it is. That spending the night and all that different kind of stuff. I'm like, and I get very frustrated when I see, and I have young women, a lot of young women around me, a lot of millennial women, or crossing over from the millennial stage, that I'm always kind of trying to redirect them, because I'll see whereas these young girls will bring men into the home, and that's a no-no. You know, because you just don't know. You can't meet a guy and then bring them into your home. I mean, you just don't know. A pedophile will study children, and they'll study single moms, and they will groom, and they will set up the whole scene. So we have to be very, very careful about all of that. And, you know, I tell my daughter, I was very protective of my daughter, very protective, even of my son, but very protective of my daughter. And she didn't know why. No, you can't go there. I don't know those people, you know, thinking that, oh, you're so mean, we can't do anything. But it was always that kind of, you know, making sure that I was ahead of it, you know, because I know that the enemy will come and try to start the cycle again, but always trying to make sure that I was ahead of that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I would really talk to them and very cautious when it came to letting them go here and there and all that type of stuff. And even with the grandchildren, you know, but I looked at my daughter, and I thank God, because I believe she really got that from me. She wouldn't allow anyone to come her husband is like the first person that the children met.
Right.
And I mean, she'd been single forever and a day.
Right.
But because she didn't even know why I was like that, because I didn't discuss it. To me, it was a total embarrassment. It was something that I didn't want to talk about. I wanted rather forget. I did forgive. After years and years and years, I was adult, loving God, speaking in tongues, running around the church, doing all of that. But I really think the forgiving process didn't come to fruition until after maybe 46.
Wow.
And I mean, even with my mom, it was always like something there, and I never really discussed it with her because I didn't even know which way that would go.
Right.
But we would always have, she didn't understand what is wrong with this kid. But I think it was that anger in me because I always felt like, there no protection.
Right.
Why do you leave? And I get angry now. Why do you leave the children, your daughters, with men that apparently you got to pick up that they have some type of issue.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid and I knew the man, something was wrong with the man.
Well, when you have been abused, your vision is totally different than people who have not. It's not even that it's tainted, it's clearer. Because I'm going to tell you, you become so super sensitive. Like you can see it, and we've had these conversations before. It's like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? You become so sensitive because you're seeing through a vision that is, what could possibly happen on the back end.
True.
So with mine, I actually think my husband started telling my kids before I did because they would just be like, what is wrong with her? She won't let us do nothing. Like they would get the speech, okay, nobody touches you where your bikini goes, where your bathing suit is. Like all of those things. And oh my gosh, my kids were so like, okay, Mom, okay. So when we finally started really talking about it, and they were young kids, they understood, like, okay, that's why you see that. But even to this day, when I talk to my grown adult kids, they're like, Mom, you just process stuff so different. And I'm like, it's because of my situation. It makes me very sensitive. So don't dismiss that. Like, be alert, be watchful. I'd rather be overly cautious than to not ask.
Come on.
So I asked him like 50,000 times, you can spend the night, but okay, come tell me what happened. Who
Okay.
was there? Where'd they sleep?
And I'm sorry, I just want to say this. We keep just reiterating the men. Nowadays,
Yes.
we have
Come on,
to watch
Nicole.
The
out
women.
for the women.
Lord have mercy.
Because of what happened to me, I want to just admonish
Come
my
on.
dad. I love my dad. He was one of those, you can't go anywhere. And then finally, when I got in the 9th grade, I was like, man, I've been friends with these kids since 6th grade. I ain't been nobody else. But the way he explained it to me, he said, okay, so you go to Keisha's house. I don't know if Keisha mama got a boyfriend.
Right.
I don't know if he do drugs.
Right.
I don't know if Keisha mama boyfriend beat her up at night, and then you over there. Then you,
Right.
I know how you are. You gonna run out the room and try to help Keisha mama. Then he gonna knock you on the ground. Now I gotta come over there and kill him. So when he said that, I'm like,
okay.
I don't want to go nobody. I'm good. But the irony is, I never spent the night at anybody else's house, but where did my abuse happen?
See?
In your house.
And with my family.
Right.
So Dad would never let me go to friends' house, but he would let me go to family members' house. Oh, you can go to your cousin's house, and it still happened. But it also it instills something in me. Last year, my daughter's friend wanted to spend the night, and my daughter asked could she spend the night, and I was like, okay. I guess between my daughter and her friend, the little girl was probably like, what's your address? My daughter texted to her. Next thing you know, my doorbell ring. My daughter go answer the door. The little girl then came in.
No
Her mama then
parents.
drove off.
No.
Lord.
I was furious.
Yeah.
I
They
called
do
that
that.
lady. I said, ma'am, you don't know if a man live here with me. You don't know if I do drugs. You don't know if I have roaches. You hadn't come in. You don't even know if I have furniture, have a bed for this child to sleep on. You don't know if I have food. You don't even know my name. And I was so mad at her, but I was so mad because I know
Yes.
how I am. But the thing about it, because of how I've been treated as a child, everybody that knows, all my friends, they know when they bring their kids over, everybody taking a bath, everybody getting their toothbrush. Don't come on Saturday night, because Sunday you going to church. I don't care what religion you are. If your mama never took you going to church with me. You know, I just have different morals and different, you know, my character is different because of what I went through. So I admonish myself not to mistreat somebody else's child. You know, if you come over to my house, you spend the night, I'm combing your hair. I don't know what your mama did to you why you look like that over here, but I'm gonna send you back a different way. You know, so I just want to go back to, we can't just,
that's good.
we
That's
can't
true.
just make it
That's
men
good.
on men
That's
on
true.
women and women
Yes,
on men.
yes.
Now it's men on the
Yes.
little boys. It's women on the little
girl.
girls.
Come on, that's
you know,
true.
This goes both ways in 2018.
Oh, my God.
So you have to be mindful of that, because my daughter was going to a daycare. And we didn't notice why every time this one particular woman would walk by, she would just start screaming. And then it started with that. The next thing you know, she had this real bad diaper rash. The next thing you know, something wasn't right at the bottom. And long story short, this we ended up shutting the daycare down.
Oh, my
But
God.
that daycare worker was she was a lesbian, and she was bothering my daughter below in her diaper area. And you know, you have to, even when these kids can't talk, you got to look at their behavior
Yes,
and
yes,
things of
yes,
that
yes.
nature. You know, so
But you see that cycle? You see
Yes.
how the enemy would it come back around and try to pervert even the next generation. Excuse me, to just bringing it back around. Now it's a baby. Now it's a kid, your kids. Now it's, so we have to be in that place where, number one, we're alert. And that's what I would pray. I'm like, Lord, let me be alert. Educate and
your
alert. You know, look and
Family
see.
meetings.
Yeah, and what else?
Family meetings.
And meeting and be very open.
That's what we had.
And not, you know, your children need to know that they don't have to fear talking to you about
Right.
whatever has
Right.
happened to them, you know? And so the enemy, what he does is try to bring it back around and pervert, even from a baby, from the infant. You mean to tell me they get attacked? That is just so not okay. I get so angry and I get very passionate about it, because I just think that we do not protect enough. I think that, and really, I lived a life of, that was my anger issues, that I was not protected. And my mom didn't have a clue. But I'm like, you know, today I look at women and I see young girls and they say such and such is picking up their daughters or their sons. They've known this man 2 months. I'm like, what the heck? And why is he picking her up?
he emergency contact.
Yeah. And I'll go out there and I make it well known. I'm like, I can't believe, why is he picking her up? You know, they're like, you know, Miss Gail, that's really not your business. Why is he picking her up? You know, I get in their face about
Miss
that.
Gail will call
because
the
I
law.
do. And I go back to explaining to them, listen, let me tell you the story about pickups, that kind of stuff. You know, and some get it and some do not.
Right.
Because we as women, we can't be so thirsty. That's the word. We can't be so thirsty that we just allow people into our place and into the place. Because when they come into our place, if we have children, we allow them into the place called children. I looked at a YouTube not long ago where this guy had raped a 3-year-old. She died. And the mom, he was some type of person that played a piano or whatever at the church. He had met him at this church, moved him in with her.
They in the church.
And the baby, when she got home, the baby was gone. The 3-year-old had been raped and had been horrible. And she defended still the man.
That's what
I just don't believe he could do something like this, blah, blah, blah. They've already arrested him. We can be so thirsty. Thirsty.
Just like on the movie Precious.
You know
She
what
was
I'm
mad-
saying?
she was
Yeah.
mad at her daughter.
To allow just people to come into our place that we don't even know. We haven't studied them. And it's so easy to become victims because we do not allow ourselves space and time to really know people. And even in that, Nicole just said it, most often, molestation and abuse comes from inside the household. It comes from family members. So, you know, be cautious, be aware. I mean, be by yourself if you have to, until your children get to a certain age where they can really understand what is happening to them. And I can't say too much
I just
more
want to
about
say
that.
this too. That I'm just being transparent. It is possible to date ladies and not reveal your address. I had somebody ask me to marry them, and they had never been to my house. I mean, I used to get mad when they tried to act like they wanted to ask me where I live. All you gonna get is what side of town? The south side. Oh, that's a large side. The south side. You know, because my thing is I don't live in apartments. I live in a house. So if you decide you want to be crazy or come by stalking, I can't just easily call down to the rent office and say, "Oh, can you move me to the third floor? I need to relocate." So I try my best not to let anybody know where I live. Y'all know when I go live, I'm sitting up. All you see is a wall. I don't let y'all see my furniture, what I have, my TVs, like, and it's kind of a paranoia, but it's because I want my home to be my safe haven.
That's right.
And
You're
if we're dating and it doesn't work out, I don't want you coming by my house and you home and I saw your car and or my son outside cutting the grass. You, hey, where your mama? No, that's crazy. So it is possible, ladies, to date and not reveal where somebody stays. And nowadays, people that mean to do you harm, they look nice. They're not the ugly, scary-looking man that look homeless that's trying to sneak up on you at night. No, they're the nice-looking guys with the clean white teeth, with the ties on and the button-downs. Those are the ones that you really need to be afraid of. They're the ones with the degrees and the ones that know how to talk and to get into your head. And you think you got a meal ticket, but you got a pedophile on your hands. So you have to. I admonish everybody: if you dating, do a background check, get a social, driver's license.
That's something. Okay, so we are wearing these shirts. Can everybody kind of show your shirts? This is my Lizzy Bear shirt, and I'm gonna turn it over to Liz Bias, because when she came in, I started off talking about us and just standing in the kitchen and she crying. I'm like, girl, give me a little bit at the time. I'm a faint. I can't take too much. You're bringing back too many memories. My heart is beating fast and rapid. Sometimes she sends me these poems and I'll read just a little bit and I'll put it down because I go into a very emotional place because I can feel the poem. I can feel the words, and the words come to life. And it's amazing what God is doing. So this shirt is my Lizzy Bear shirt, and I'll let her talk to you more. And if you want to buy a Lizzy Bear shirt, they're going to post it. This shirt, this teal and blue, for those of you who don't know, teal and blue represents sexual assault, domestic violence. These are the colors. Next month, most of the month, we're going to really dedicate that month into bringing people on that can speak to us about sex trafficking, the whole 9 yards. We are going to make people aware of, October is also breast cancer awareness month, and that gets, and I'm not trying to minimize breast cancer, that gets lots of attention. But when it comes to the domestic violence, I don't think it gets the attention that it's due. Even on today, there was a man that they found a corpse in his household. Probably domestic violence, that kind of stuff. It is on a rise. So many women, they lose their lives from people that once said that they loved them. So sexual assault, all of that most often comes from right in the house with people that said at one time that they loved you. So I'm gonna let her explain. I'm so proud of this woman. I feel like it's me. So I can't wait till she really get out there. I'm gonna be right behind her like photo bombing. Every time they take our picture. Talk to us, Liz. Tell us about Lizzy Bear.
Okay, I had a dream. The Lord showed me this bear that I'm fixing to show you. It had a letter with it as well that went to the victims. But I saw this bear, and the Lord began to speak to me. And as soon as I woke up, I Googled toy companies. I found a toy company. So this is the bear. It's not huge. So the toy company and myself, of course, they had already done a bunch of research on the size. They said the big ones, people get rid of big ones. But it's small enough for a child, but it's also big enough for an adult to hug as well. But I had this dream, so I was so excited trying to find a toy company for this. During this time, I had a job interview with Miss Gail. I go to the job interview. That night, the Lord tells me that Miss Gail is supposed to help me with the bear.
How about that? The Lord told her. Go on,
Okay.
Liz.
So,
What he said?
yeah. So at that point, I hadn't even got hired yet. And I knew she was going to call me back to hire me because that's what the Lord told me, that this was going to happen. So, and that's when Miss Gail was talking about, that's when I shared this with them about this dream that I had. So Miss Gail is the one that actually named the bear.
He's so precious.
I believe she called me that when she met me. And what's so weird is people used to call me Lizzy, right? I didn't like it. But when Miss Gail said it,
It sounded
it sounded great. So I knew that was all God. So, and also too, I knew that it was supposed to come with the letter, but I didn't know where it should go. And I asked Miss Gail, I said, I don't know where to put it in the bear's hand. Where does it go? And so Miss Gail said, well, you know what? Your spirit is right here. What if there was a pocket? So, call toy company. Hey, can we get a pocket?
pocket on the bed.
So,
So
it has a,
cute. Oh, Liz, look at you.
and it comes with the letter.
Oh my God. And the crowd goes wild.
Read the letter.
No, because this one's not.
Yeah.
Oh, no? It is the one.
You want to read it?
I'll read it.
Okay.
There you go, Nicole.
My name is Lizzy Bear. I'm 6 years old. I am torn, broken, and ripped. I have been hit, slapped, pushed, dragged, stepped on, burned, touched, cut, stabbed, cursed at, called names, threatened, and beaten. I have felt shame, scared, anger, pain, guilt, sadness, unwanted, and humiliation. Can you save me? Can you save me? Can you love me even though I don't know what love is? Can you keep me safe and protect me? Can you heal my heart back together so it can beat as it did before? I'm going to need a lot of hugs and kisses and to be near and close to you because we have a lot of healing to do, both me and you.
Talk about the heart.
And the most important part of it is the heart. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it has a Band-Aid on it. It's got a patch on it. It's cracked. It's broken. So that's the most important part, I think, of the bear. And I had shown a couple of people that didn't even know anything about the bear, and I let them hold it. And I've had people just cry, and I asked them, why are you crying? And they said, well, something's wrong with the bear. It apparently, it's broken. So the heart just explains all of it. So the bear, sorry. But it's been a huge journey to do this, and but I have Miss Gail just being able to follow through what God has shown me has been amazing. It actually took almost a year to the date to finish the prototype. I mean, I would have never in 1,000 years thought, because I've never done anything like that before. But I was actually off that day when it got delivered, and when I pulled it out, I just wept. I just wept. But it was a lot of emails and phone calls on, how's the eye supposed to be? How's this supposed to be? Where's this going? And I had pictures. No, I don't like that. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Who's the bear gonna go to, Liz?
I'm sorry?
Who's the bear going to? Who they're going to?
What do you mean?
You didn't tell us who's gonna get these bears.
Oh, who's going to get them? Victims and survivors of sexual and physical abuse. And so I've already talked to the president of BACA. I don't know if y'all know who that is. Bikers Against Child Abuse. So I explained to him about the bear, and he was so excited, and he told me, he said, Liz, every child that we help, they actually go to court with them to testify against their abuser. And he said, we give them a jacket with a patch. And he said, we also give them a bear. But he said, it's not a specific bear like yours. He said, it's just a regular bear. He said, we would love to be able to give your bear to these children and put a BACA bracelet on the arm.
Isn't that
And he told me we're in 39 states.
Wow.
So I'm very excited about that.
CPS,
Yes,
all.
exactly.
And this fair is just not for children. It's also for adults.
Exactly.
So adults will be able to heal as well, not just children.
Exactly.
So I am. What do you say, Liz? Can y'all just
How can we order
Oh,
that?
and I do want to say this. I have right now where I own all the rights to everything on the bear. And so I had to make sure that was done before we
Yes.
did the shirts, before we, you know.
Did the show.
So everything is locked up, okay? You can't
Yes.
steal it. It's locked up. So the only thing we're waiting on now is the money to start production. Production takes 3 months. So if there's anybody out there that has
Come on, give
Yes.
Liz some money.
give us
Let
the
us
money
live it.
to start the
Come on,
production,
help some people
to
heal.
get it out there, and I have people that I have a judge that wants to give it to the kids that testify. So, I mean, I have people that want it, so let's get some money together. So, but everything on the bear so far has been donated. The money to make the prototype, the money for the patent lawyer, everything has been donated. It's been amazing. I even had a huge restaurant owner didn't even ask, offered me his space in his warehouse
Yes.
for the bears.
Storage.
Didn't even ask him. I was like, wow. So yes, it's been amazing.
So cool. So, if you want to contact Liz Bias, you can call. Hi, Chief Landis.
Bring your children there and get yourself healed.
281-470-7800.
All
And
right.
we're also going to be posting on Facebook Live. You guys support. This
Yes.
is just this means a lot. This is, I'm telling you, just me touching this. Wait till you guys just feel it, just touch it. And I don't know if it's because I've experienced abuse, but it's something about when you touch this bear. I promise you, the healing presence is going to overtake you. So come on, children, adults, those who have been in that place. Let's do what God has called us to do and help this woman push this for the healing of other people and other
Yes.
children.
Yes.
Okay?
All right.
Come on. Yeah, you can pray too.
So, we don't want you to walk away thinking that you're a victim just because you've been victimized. The love of the Father is able to purge our conscience of every dead work. So tonight we just believe that the blood of Jesus will purge consciences of dead works. Father, we worship you. We honor you in this place. Say, I am no victim. I live with a vision. The kingdom's now become my home. In your love, I know I'm not alone. I'm not an orphan. I'm not a poor man. The kingdom's now become my home. In your love, I know I'm not alone. 'Cause I am who he says I am. He's who he says he is. I'm surrounded by his promises, shaped by every word God says. I am, you are who he says you are. Don't believe what they said you were. Be shaped by his promises. Take in every word God says. He says you're beautiful. God says you're worthy. God says you're made in his image and his likeness. And he has so much for you. So live in his love. Escape the weight of your shame. by Jesus' name. Father, we just thank you that tonight, that all those that have been victimized, that all of those that have been molested and abused physically, emotionally, sexually, trafficked, we thank you, Father, that today your blood goes in and it begins to erase the shame and the pain of what was. And today your blood goes into the deep places and brings healing, Father, because you can go into the places that men can't see and bring forth what needs to be. So we ask you, God, we ask you to release your blood and your power and your healing to begin to flow. Let the river waters from your throne, those living waters, begin to flow into the dead places and people that have been abused and assaulted, Father. And I thank you that today that you bring peace to their mind, healing to their hearts, and virtue to their souls to come alive again. No more dead men walking, but dead men come alive to who God has created you to be. Come alive to purpose and to destiny. Let the soul that God originally put in you begin to awaken to his love. Father, every day as they awaken, show them a different facet of the beautiful person that you destined and preordained them to be before time began. Father, I thank you that today healing is happening in the lives of those that have been abused, in the lives of those that have been victimized, even in those who've been the abuser. God, bring healing to their souls and their minds so that they can stop. Father, we thank you that this will not just be a broadcast where they say that was cool, but today people awaken to healing and they know that something in them has been awakened and come alive to your love and your peace and your goodness and your mercy. Father, rage will no longer keep them captive to the past, but today freedom is happening in the name of Jesus. Today freedom is happening in the name of Jesus. Today the river of your love is flowing into the places where hatred has kept it out. Thank you that today you're coming like a tsunami and you're invading the spaces of the brokenhearted, of the abused and the abandoned, and they're knowing that they're not victim, but they are loved by you and they are free today to be free. In the name of Jesus Christ, we give you glory and honor in advance for what you're doing, God. Oh, move by your spirit, God. We invite you in. We invite you in, God, to do what only you can. Heal people from the inside out. In Jesus' name, amen.